The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the Handle Factory Community Clay Center, offering hands-on wheel throwing at the Green River Festival in Greenfield, June 19th and 21st. HandleFactory.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte.
Welcome back!
Oh, thank you! Later in the show, the new Spielberg movie, Different Aliens, as Mr. Universe explores Disclosure Day with us.
Plus a new novella that is the first in a sword and sorcery series from East Hampton author Jedidiah Berry as we swash through the buckles of Kill All Wizards.
But first, the Springfield Symphony Orchestra has made it a tradition to host a free-to-the-public concert on Juneteenth for the people of the city.
And this year they'll do it again, but with a slightly different approach. On Friday, June 19th, 2026, the Springfield Symphony Orchestra partners with White Lion Brewing Company and Six Bricks to present a special afternoon of live chamber music in Center Court at Tower Square. From noon until 6 p.m., enjoy performances by Springfield Symphony Orchestra musicians alongside a dynamic lineup of small business vendors and creative innovation panel. This free, family-friendly event is open to all. Come gather, reflect, and celebrate. The Freedom Concert itself begins at 3 p.m. and features conductor Kevin Sharpe, who joins us now, as well as the Avery Sharpe Quintet, the namesake of which also joins us, and Heather Casey Roberts, president of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, to talk about all of this. Now, when we saw that there were two Sharpe brothers on this particular program, Monty and I said to ourselves, well, we have to talk to the two of them about this. But before we get to that, Heather, this is the first time that I've seen this concert move from Symphony Hall to outside.
Yes.
Talk about having it in a more public space. Not that Symphony Hall isn't public, but this is definitely getting it in and amongst the people.
The community. And
Yeah.
it's I think creating a different level of accessibility than people often associate with Symphony Hall. Symphony Hall is gorgeous and beautiful, but it also comes with the stereotype of very sort of old and quiet and stuffy and do I need to throw my suit on before I walk in there? And that's just not the vibe of this concert or the celebration. And we wanted to try to sort of refocus on that by reassessing where we were going to be, not only because we had serious financial constraints this year, it also allowed us to really reflect on meeting the community where they are and what would make people want to come in and hear this amazing music that they might not do for any other reason, but now maybe there's a vendor they want to meet or a panelist they want to hear. We'll be doing beautiful memorials for some of the best leaders Springfield has seen that have passed this year. And so we're hoping that being in a space that you can literally walk right up to will engage people differently than we have previously.
Avery, this is the second time in my tenure at NEPM that I've seen you work as a part of this particular concert. In the past, they've done your 400 suite. What's this? Why would you want to participate this year? Why bring the quintet back to the Springfield Symphony Orchestra for Juneteenth?
Well, actually, this is the third time.
Oh,
yeah, right?
Yes, I was in 2023, 2024. And when Heather called me and explained that the challenges that they were having, I immediately said yes. I would, do the project, number one, because any project that I'm playing music is great. That's what I live for. And I just also wanted to see that this whole project, the Juneteenth project that Springfield had adopted back in 2023, continue. And, even with the limited budget and so forth, I want to see this continue with or without me, so that is why I'm excited again to be here.
We're being a little scrappy this year.
Yeah.
We're being creative. I mean, it's kind of the truth of where we're at as an organization as well right now. We're rebuilding. We are completely redefining what it means to have a symphony orchestra in Springfield. And for me, that means remaining true to commitments that we've made. The first Juneteenth that we had now 4 years ago, and committed from the second we started that this was not something that was going to just be a passing thing in a moment, because people thought it was cool at that time. This is so much bigger than that. This is bringing voices to life that have not ever been seen or heard before. This is showcasing incredible talent from our community in Springfield, Massachusetts. The fact that I'm sitting in between the two Sharpe brothers right now, honestly, still blows my mind and makes me wake
there's
up.
trouble. There's trouble on
so much trouble.
there's trouble on the horizon here.
Yeah.
Big trouble.
You don't want to say that too loud.
The fact that they both heard me out when I literally called and, let's be honest, kind of begged a little for their help and support to keep this alive is more meaningful than I'll be able to put into words to either of them, because they don't have to be doing what they're doing right now. I think having that kind of support and commitment for what we have available to us in Springfield is something that everyone needs to be paying attention to.
Well, Heather, we appreciate, when you called me, I was appreciative that you were so involved and so wanted that this Juneteenth thing to continue. I was like, whoa, that's really cool.
The same for me. I really wanted it to continue, whether I'm involved or not. I wanted it. It's important. It's important for the community.
It's a part of our history. And we look around in the world we're in right now, and people are trying to take so many parts of that away. Why would we ever want to participate in that? If we stop being loud about it, then who will be?
That's Heather Casey Roberts, president of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. We're talking about their upcoming Juneteenth celebration happening on Juneteenth itself. It is totally free. It's happening in Court Square. And we are also joined by conductor Kevin Sharpe and Avery Sharpe of the Avery Sharpe Quintet, who are going to be performing. Kevin, is this your first time conducting the orchestra for it?
This is my first time conducting the orchestra for this particular event.
This has been happening for 4 years. Talk about this year's program in comparison to previous years.
Well,
That was great.
I had a lot of input into the program because I had done the 2023 program, and of course when they did my 400 program, and because of the time constraints, I couldn't just put together an entire thing, which I would love to do, but due to time constraints, I thought about picking out the pieces from like the 2023 and my 400 project, and along with piece by African American female composer Florence Price, and so we're going to do a couple of her pieces, combining that with the chamber orchestra, with the symphony. I thought it would just be a good mixture of the past two programs, adding some African American classical composers as well. So you have a good mixture of music. You've got the extended family choir, which is my choir, which is directed by my brother Kevin. And you've got the Springfield Symphony Chorus combined. We've been doing combined things for, good Lord,
2021.
Yeah.
No, before that. I think back in early 2000, late 90s. So, I love epic things. And this program will be, it'll be some gospel, it'll be some jazz, it'll be some classical. Spiritual. So it'll be very rounded. The way I love things and the way I think. I listen to all kind of music, and I listen to new things as well. As people listen to my radio show, I introduce new artists as well as older, jazz artists, that kind of thing. So that's just the way my mind works, and I love to see those kind of things.
It's Jazz a la Mode host Avery Sharpe, bass legend, who happens to be here at any PM doing a jazz show for us every Friday night. And his brother, Kevin Sharpe, is going to be directing this, conducting. It's directing, but for music.
Holding a stick and waving.
I was going to say, but I don't hold a fancy
There's
stick
more to it than
instead of a
that.
clapboard.
This isn't the first time that you've directed your brother's music. What does that change about your style or what you want to bring on stage to make more of a straight line through the history we are putting forward in this program?
For me, conducting is conducting, and knowing the score, and trying to figure out what the composer wanted. With his stuff, I can just ask, is this what you meant? And why did you write it that way? Or, etc. And sometimes Avery's music can be considered complex, but it tends to make sense to me. Both being rhythm section players, that's probably part of that, and family background too. I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
Well, I think when you say rhythm section players, you have to explain to that. See, Kevin he studied actually percussion. He's actually a drummer, and he used to complain that only time he gets to play drums is when I would hire him to play drums. And I'm a bass player, so and guitar and piano are all considered part of the rhythm section. So rhythm section, sometimes people who play those instruments think a little different than others, like say, a
String
saxophone
players.
player or string player. But I am a string player. I'll get into that.
So I have a question then.
Yes.
How do you change your mindset from being this rhythm and jazz to then also conducting these very sort of big, epic classical pieces?
Well, for me, I'll tell you a story. As a percussion major, I was working on marimba during college. A friend of mine came over my house. I had some Baroque piece that I was working on, and he was a jazz musician. He looked at the piece and he goes, "Oh, that looks like Charlie Parker." And he proceeded to play the melody on his saxophone in a jazz style. And I was like, actually it is.
Oh.
Yes. So, and it's like, it's all one thing. For me, it's all one thing. Expression, passion, emotion. It's still got to swing regardless of the genre. It's got to be funky. It's got to swing. And it doesn't matter the genre.
Yeah.
But you want the passion of it. You want the emotion of it. And it just translates for me as it's just music.
More coming up with our very own Avery Sharpe, his brother Kevin Sharpe, and Springfield Symphony Orchestra President Heather Casey Roberts as we explore the musical histories of the Sharpe brothers and how that relates to this upcoming free Juneteenth concert.
After which, we'll get Mr. Universe's take on Spielberg's latest film, Disclosure Day, and into the pages of a new novella from author Jedidiah Berry.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Berkshire Choral International, performing British Mavericks, choral orchestral works by Britton and Smith, June 27th at the UMass Fine Arts Center, berkshirechoral.org.
We're talking about the Springfield Symphony Orchestra's Juneteenth concert happening on Juneteenth. The whole celebration begins at noon, goes until 6, but the concert itself starts at 3. What was music like in the Sharpe household for two of you growing up, since you're so far apart in age?
It's going to be different from him and from me.
Yeah.
So my mother was a piano player, choir director. There was always music. She'd always have people over the house working on stuff for some of the singers from the church and so forth. I started singing at the church when I was 7 in the choir. And when I was 11, I got to play. But he was there playing bass, and my sister was playing piano. And it was always there. So I would go to church all the time with my mother. There'd be revivals. I'd be sitting on the organ bench or on the piano bench, whatever, depending on what it was, all the time. So there's the music was constant with her. And then also, he had a band. My other sister played percussion in church, and they were doing this rhythm on the floor, something like that. And I was very small, and I was like, "What is that?" And they were both on the floor doing it, and they showed me how to do it. And it was a real basic rhythm that is common in like James Brown grooves. He was playing in the band. I would sit and listen to them. I would listen to their drummer in particular, a guy named Alvin Terry, one of my big influences. And watching everybody doing what they're doing all the time was instructive. Also, my sister Tish, the piano player, the organ player, she'd be working on Beethoven stuff, and I'd wake up to this, and it's like, didn't she learn it yet? It's like, she'd be doing it all the time. So growing up with that, I started playing more. He started playing less, and he was gone. And then I developed more in the church, and then school. But his perspective is going to be a little different because he was on the other end of that.
Yeah, mine's totally different. I'm number 6 of 8, and Kevin's the caboose there. He's the last one.
When they got it right.
Well, the one, he's the baby of the family, even though he doesn't like to hear that one.
He's the youngest.
So he's the only Yankee. He's the only one that was born up here. The rest of us were born either down south or in the Midwest because my father was in the service. This was during
Jim Crow.
Jim Crow, the legal segregated South. My parents always tried to protect us from that. We're 2 years apart up to me, and then there's 6 years between me and my baby sister. and then 6 years between her and Kevin. So I was the first one to get a chance to hang with my mother. I went with her everywhere. I went with her. She played for funerals. She played for weddings. She played for revivals. And people who know, anybody who knows anything about the Church of God in Christ, especially back then, things have lightened up quite a bit.
Yes.
But, back then, women were not allowed to wear makeup. The dresses had to be below the knees. We didn't congregate where the devil congregated. So I didn't go to movies until I was like 11 or 12. And the Church of God in Christ, you're involved.
Yes.
Every day. It's like, just don't make any plans on Sunday. Monday you might be off. Tuesday night there's prayer. Wednesday might be women's prayer.
Monday was rehearsal. Tuesday's prayer, yeah.
And then one of the days you might be off. Thursday was choir rehearsal. Yep. Friday was regular church service. Because I always mention this because I was a big Jim West fan. And Wild Wild West came on Friday nights at 8 o'clock, and I had to be in church.
I didn't know you were too. Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jim West, he was cool. But you took it to another level. That's another story. He took it to another level.
I feel like I need to be taking notes about questions to ask.
No, the reason why I started playing bass in church is because I didn't like being in the choir, because you had people who could sing and some people who couldn't sing, but everybody was loud. I used to get headaches. And in the Church of God in Christ, you had to be involved in something. So I was on the usher board, where you escort people to their seats and so forth. I got tired of standing the entire service. And I remember I was sitting in the back of the church, and Bishop Robinson Sr. was the minister at the time, and his son, A.C. Robinson, was playing organ. I was like, and I had just started playing bass, and I was like, oh. This is before churches got bands and stuff, so they just had an organ. I said, let me ask him if I can play bass. So I was playing bass in the church, and then I was also playing the devil's music, James Brown and all the other rhythm and blues and soul stuff with my friends. And the funny thing about it, my mother, now she's in the church.
Hardcore.
Saved and sanctified, but my mother, before I could drive, she would drive me to the clubs. She never came in. And then when I would get through, whatever a phone call was back then, a dime or a nickel, I'd drop it in. I'd call and she'd pick me up behind, but she never went in. My mother, she said, I knew you were there just for the music. So my mother only has seen me play in a club one time. She's seen me play because, you're Church of God in Christ. Right. And the reason why she saw me, this was in the 90s, I was playing down in Washington, D.C. with McCoy Tyner Trio, and my niece, my oldest brother's firstborn child, was in the Army at the time, and she was getting a special accommodation for work that she had done overseas or something. And so my mother went down and my sisters went down, and I said, Mom, I'm going to be in town that week that, Milena gets her award. Why don't you come to see me at the club? She goes, oh, no, I can't do that. I said, Mom, it's not, her idea of a club was from Florida. Yeah. Gut bucket, dirt on the floor, blood on the floor. I said, Mom, this is a jazz club. You got to have a certain amount of money to be up in here. It's like, and she goes, all right, son, if you say so, then I'll. So that was the only time she'd ever seen me play in a club. And then my sister started making fun of her, calling her a Jezebel and a loose woman going to a club.
Oh, my goodness.
But that was actually pretty radical for the time.
Yeah.
For her to sanction that.
We're talking about the Springfield Symphony Orchestra's Juneteenth concert happening on Juneteenth. I've got one last question. This concert is free. It's intentionally free for the community. But what's some of the changes that you've seen in the crowd in their connection with the music that gets played at this concert over the years that this free concert has been presented? All three of you have been there for at least some of those years. I
think one of the things that's been the most exciting for me is to witness how many people for the last 3 years, it was their first time ever even stepping foot into Symphony Hall. And they may have grown up here or right around here, and just sort of seeing that reaction of this treasure and making it feel as though everybody is welcome there, which is not something that you can probably say forever back in the history of Springfield Symphony Hall. I think that brings some real excitement and life to what we're doing. But I think even more so than that is watching people actually let themselves be in the music and feel it and clap at the wrong times and sing out loud if they know the words and get up and dance with the person next to them and just really allow themselves to sort of be in a place of just joy and community and acceptance, because you don't get that often anymore. So being able to feel safe enough in a space to do that has been one of the most amazing parts of this concert for me.
Kevin?
Ditto.
He's still thinking about his Star Trek.
Fair?
No,
Sure.
I think
A good cosplay, I'm just saying.
I think we have to go back to the original intent of music, which sometimes has been kind of morphed. I always, even I teach my students that the original intent of music was
Community.
human beings trying to communicate with the gods or whatever, and then eventually with each other. And music should always be functional in that it shouldn't be in a museum, in that it's supposed to be part of your daily life. So it's great that we're doing this project with the symphony where it becomes an active part of our life, because we hear music all the time. To me, one of my sort of pet peeves is that music is kind of taken for granted because we hear it all the time.
Yes.
You hear it when you shop, you hear it in video games, you hear it. It becomes almost like wallpaper. And
Right.
I tell my students, it's special. This event is functional.
And music has always actually been a communal thing anyway. Going back, it's only in more recent decades that it became, we watch somebody else do the music. It was
You'd go to somebody's house for their personal recital. Like,
Well, yeah,
Yes.
because I grew up, my pop plays the keyboard in the basement, and we grew up singing, John Denver songs and
Right. Or
gospel
their
pieces or
guitar.
whatever it may
Yep.
be.
It was a live, living thing.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to sound good necessarily, but it's the joy of doing it. And the arts don't need to be perfected for the general populace.
it's a point that I bring up all the time. Like, people should make art for themselves
Yes.
more than they
Yes.
do, and at the same time, pay professional artists so that they can continue making art.
Yes.
But neither of those things are things that you necessarily have to worry about, except for being in community with other people who are appreciating our symphony orchestra performing for Juneteenth at Court Square on Friday, June 19th at 3 p.m. But the whole thing goes from 12 until 6. We've been joined by SSO President Heather Caisse Roberts and brothers in music and brothers beyond, conductor Kevin Sharpe and leader of the Avery Sharpe Quintet and composer and many things beyond, not to mention Jazz a la mode host Avery Sharpe. Thank you all for joining me to talk about this really important event.
Thank you for having
thank you.
us.
Yeah,
so
thank you for
much.
having us.
Thank you.
Find more details about the free Juneteenth concert from the Springfield Symphony Orchestra through their website, springfieldsymphony.org.
Spielberg is putting aliens on screen again, so we got to talk about that with Mr. Universe Salman Hamid.
And up next, we'll chat with East Hampton author Jedidiah Berry about his new novella, Kill All Wizards, the first in a brand new sword and sorcery series, which comes out tomorrow.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Visiting Angels West Springfield, providing home care for seniors and veterans in Hampden County, including Pocket RN, a virtual Medicare-approved dementia care program. visitingangels.com/West Springfield.
Am I going to be reading a little at some point?
If you'd like to, then please,
Okay.
because the prosody of this book is part of the fun.
I was going to ask you to do it just so people can get a sense of what your language is like.
Great.
Which is
Okay.
hard to say without saying the language.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why don't we start right there?
Yeah.
You want to read for us?
Sure, yeah, I'd
Yeah.
be happy to. So this is just from the beginning of the book, Kill All Wizards. Chapter 1, The View from the Unnameable. There was a great tameness upon the land. Cats licked their paws, the trains ran on time, our bellies and our calendars were full. In those days, the barbarian was back and forth over the stony marches, sampling cigars at Scales and Company one day, plundering the tomb of some ancient demon prince the next. Long before his taking of House Derby this was. Gotchamus, the only name we knew him by. A delver, a drifter, an outlander in every land, he gazed over teacups as though from a dream of the old dream-haunted world, but he kept his pocket watch wound, even in the meanest pits of the far wilds.
I love it.
It's so good.
Great intro, and it's only a little taste of the way that you use language in this book, Jedidiah Berry, Kill All Wizards, your brand new book. Let's do a proper intro.
The barbarian traveled far to consult the wizards of the Empire, but instead of lending their aid, they ensorcelled him, exploited his strength, and stole his sword. They should not have done that.
Ensorcelled. I mean, come on. This is the premise of the new book, Kill All Wizards, the first of a new series by local author Jedidiah Berry. Jedidiah Berry's last novel, The Naming Song, won the Massachusetts Book Award for Fiction and was an LA Times Book Prize finalist. We had him on for that book, which was also unbelievable. His first novel, The Manual of Detection, won the Crawford Award and the Hammett Prize and was adapted for broadcast by BBC Radio 4.
He is the author of numerous stories and interactive works, including The Family Arcana, which was a finalist for a World Fantasy Award. He's the co-creator with Andrew McAlpine of the Wild and Drem adventure game setting, which began with the Emmy Award-winning The Valley of Flowers. Together with his partner, Emily Hoke, he runs Nine Pin Press, an independent publisher of fiction, poetry, and games in unusual shapes.
And on June 16th, he'll celebrate the release of this new book with an event at Vision Video in Northampton, which is a fun place to hold an event like this. In conversation with another one of our favorite local authors, Kelly Link. Jedidiah Berry joins us now. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me back.
I got done with this book and flopped over and was like, God, I love your writing so much.
Oh. Same. I want to quote one of the blurbs on the back of the book. First of all, Kelly Link blurbs the back of the book. All these who's who of Hugo Award winners, etc., blurbing this book. And one of them, Chris Blumen from USA Today, says, I read the whole thing in one sitting, and I never do that. Same, Jed Berry. I read the whole thing in one sitting, except I read it at night last night. And if it's after 8:39, if I start reading, I immediately fall asleep. So I read the whole thing in one standing.
Amazing.
I literally stood in my living room. My children were like, Dad, are you insane? What are you doing? It looked like I was a soliloquy or something like that about it, but no, and it was well worth it.
Yeah. Another blurb on the back of this book says it's like Conan the Barbarian meets Jane Austen, which I agree with on a lot of levels. And so what was it about the Conan stories that are quite different from the movies if the movies are what you're familiar with?
Which is all I'm familiar with.
Right. What was it about those stories that was appealing to you to want to kind of create your own in its own scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I should say I came to the Conan stories via comic books first, actually. When I was a kid, a friend of mine gave me a pile of, vintage comics from the 70s, a lot of old sword and sorcery stuff. And I mean, of course, I loved the adventure. I loved the sense of the magic and what could happen, and this character who is surviving by his wits. And yes, he is a muscle-bound strong man, but he is most importantly incredibly clever. But what ultimately began to appeal to me about those stories, and what I wanted to get into in this book and in the sequels that I'm working on now, is what I feel in Sword and Sorcery is this kinship with a kind of fight against corruption and civilization at its worst, right? The barbarian comes to town and he is here to do battle against those who would do wrong against the populace as a whole.
But the other thing about the original Conan series that I love is that Conan is ostensibly a thief. Barbarian is kind of like his ethnicity as opposed to his occupation. And this is a heist novella.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a revenge story, and it's true. There are some key, highly valuable objects. I mean, having something like that in a story, of course, is always very useful, right? The classic MacGuffin, where you have everybody after the thing, and it reveals who they are and what they want. But yeah, this is about a barbarian who comes into the world of the upper class gentry of a fictional London-like city and has to blend in with that society in order to accomplish the dread deeds he's come to perform.
We're speaking with Jedidiah Berry about his new book, Kill All Wizards, which Caisse and I love. And your barbarian, we've mentioned his name in the reading, is Gotchamus. Introduce us to him and tell us why you named him such.
Yeah, gosh, where did these names come from? I mean, fantasy names are always so funny and ridiculous to me. I love turning them up a notch sometimes and just making them that much more absurd if I can. My last book, The Naming Song, I was very subtle with names. There were no made-up words, in fact, and the names of the characters were all very mundane things. But here, I got to name gods and monsters, and of course the main character, all with the biggest sounding things I could find. And there was a gotch who was a wrestler, an early American wrestler. I came upon that and thought, what could I add to that? So I took gotch and made it gotchimus.
Yeah, totally. Give it the gladiator effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so great.
And it's interesting because gotchimus, as you were saying before, is going through proper society and righting wrongs. I wonder if people will read this while we have an octagon built on the lawn of the White House and wondering whether they might take it as that is what perhaps Trump and his MAGA party is doing now. Like, we've got professional wrestling that's part of American society now. It's upending all of the wrongs that have been done, and we're really messing stuff up. We're killing all of the Democrat wizards, just like Gotchimus is doing in this book. I am assuming, knowing you a little bit, that might not be what you were going for, but I'm wondering if there's been any feedback about that idea.
You know, that hasn't come up, and it is a thing I wondered about, because this is meant to be a story in which big changes happen, but it is ultimately an anti-authoritarian story. The wizards are like shown as a group of people who are holding on to power in corrupt ways, who are using others as tokens in their game. And I think about people wearing long robes in our government and the kinds of changes they're making with their Supreme Court votes. That's more like the kind of wizards who I'm maybe dealing with here.
This is fantasy. We're not advocating for murder.
Absolutely not.
But Gotchimus does it and does it well.
He does indeed. And the way that story gets revealed is the most beautifully mundane thing, too. Like, this is a story told over tea to his one friend in town. And there's just something so beautiful about that. This is your first series that I know of.
It is.
How did your work on RPGs,
role-playing games? I'm going to translate for the non-nerds who are listening.
Or TTRPGs, if we want to get real technical about it. Tabletop role-playing games influence your pacing and your want to do this as a series instead of a standalone novel.
Right. I mean, a lot of my writing practice actually goes back to tabletop role-playing games. You know, as a kid, I ran them for my friends, but we didn't have access to the D&D materials. Like, I knew it was something that existed.
And soon no one will, because they're putting it behind paywalls.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. We're going back. But so we made it all up, and I'm so glad we did. That really has so informed my sense of storytelling and wanting to introduce a feeling of playfulness in that storytelling. It's true. This is the first time I've written a series. It happened almost accidentally. I mean, I wrote this, and then my editor asked, like, do I want to keep going? And I was having such a blast writing this. Like, it was so much fun. I was like, yes, sign me up for more. Let's do this. So so the second one is done, and the third is in progress. And as someone who spent 12 years on their last book on writing the naming song, this is a very different sort of experience.
And we're speaking with Jedidiah Berry about the book Kill All Wizards, and the naming song is a heftier book. And this book I literally read standing up. So you're not going to read a book that's 800 pages long standing the entire time. So you didn't go into this saying like, okay, I have a whole novel written and I'm just going to make this a breaking point as part one. You literally only wrote Kill All Wizards with no idea of where Gotchimus was going to go in the future? Or
he is a character who's been in my mind for a long time. I actually wrote the opening scene of those two characters having tea years and years ago, made myself stop working on it because I wanted to finish the novel that I was working on, and then came back to it. But in that time, I had in fact generated a lot of ideas about where this is going. And I have various versions of it I could tell. I now know that I get to tell the nice, pretty big version, and if folks want more, there's the super big version that I would love to go on to. It's tricky because I'm trying to write at a small scale. These are novellas, really,
right?
But at the same time, give a sense of expansiveness and possibility in the prose and in the way the world is presented. You just get little pieces of this world, and I would love to keep exploring it.
And I think that, like, at least right now, people have gotten a little bit more accustomed to novella series is. Like, think of like Murderbot and like Binti and
Yes.
several other of those like shorter, complete stories that evoke a much larger landscape that you get to play around in when the next book comes out.
Right. And I think that's a really fun thing. I mean, it goes back in my mind to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and the Sherlock Holmes mysteries.
And
where-
Fafford and Mouser.
Absolutely, Fafford and the Grey Mouser, where you get to kind of dip into this world, see a little bit of it, and then you're out again. But your sense of the place and the characters changes every time and builds over time. I love that as compared to the sort of work of building a whole world in advance. That is incredible to me that people can do that kind of world building. But I like doing it piecemeal and letting the sort of adventure set the pace and set the stage.
And I'm already excited to hang out with Gotchamus again. Not that he's the most charming or compelling character. He's just, there's something about him. It's the conflicts within him that make him so compelling to me. The fact that you'll be talking to him in one moment and then you've got a sword through your head in another. And he is, as the book indicates, wanting to kill all wizards. And the next book is Devouring Gods. And there is deicide in this particular book, and there is a lot of wizard killing. Wizards have, as of late, been something that people have been quite fond of. So how come you decided to make wizards the main target of ire here? And I'm assuming the next book, gods will be the ones that we're going after.
I want to say up front, I love wizards. I know many fine wizards.
I only know of Alan Moore.
Alan Moore, great.
It's got to be a real wizard.
Very fine wizard, yeah. But, I mean, wizards in fiction, I think of Ursula Le Guin and the Earthsea novels. Love those books. I am not anti-wizard. I can't speak for my main character, however, who just he has his feelings. I too would be nervous about to sit down with him, I'll say.
But that said, can we talk about the narrative framework of this? Because like Gotchamus' story is not told through Gotchamus and it's not told through his friend. It's told through another narrator. And the way the narrator speaks with the audience is something else that I totally loved, because it was much like Gotchamus telling his own story, like, oh, we can't go into those details. Wait a minute, I must divulge these details.
Right. Yeah, I had this idea early on, like the tension that's driving this is in part the fact that there is a very kind of persnickety narrator who is very proper, right? But is having to tell the story of this barbaric figure who is engaging in acts of violence. And in fact, I was happy to see that one person describe it as Conan meets Jane Austen, because indeed the phrase I had in mind was, instead of sword and sorcery, this is sword and sourceability, right? And so I get to write the sort of exploits and daring do and battle scenes, but meanwhile the narrator is like, should we really be talking about this? I'm not sure. This is really quite excessive. It's very fun to do. I love the genre stuff, and I love to toy with it and subvert it when I can, and that's part of how I'm doing that here.
I'm wondering if there is a hidden literary Easter egg in this, in the sense that there is a pub that they start the story in called Unnameable. That is unnameable for reasons that will be explained in the book that I may not divulge right now. But Unnameable is also the name of a pretty famous bookstore in New York, as well as in Turners Falls, Massachusetts. Yes,
that's right.
So is that an intentional local/literary Easter egg?
I got to do a couple things at once there, because in the naming song, I was very interested in things that are named versus nameless. And in fact, careful readers may note that this actually takes place possibly in the same world many, many years later. And the Unnameable comes out of that. But yes, I was very aware of the bookstore, certainly. I love that bookstore. And so wanted to give them a little shout out as well.
That's great.
Can we talk about New World versus Old World, especially where Gotchamus is concerned? Because one of the things that really pops up is that, like, Gotchamus, because of his nature, is connected to kind of the primal spirit of this land that he's wandering. It becomes some of that, like, anti-authoritarianism in a more environmental lens, but, like, because of his connections to the land, like, some of his actions aren't really understood by the more civilized people.
Right.
Yeah, talk about that friction between, or trying to create that friction between the old spirits that people can no longer connect with and the new technologies they are creating to fill that void.
Right. Well, I mean, that was very well put. and that's like how I want that to feel. I wanted to write about a character who is considered an outsider, but who in fact is closer to the center of things than the, the quote unquote civilized world around him. I mean, that's part of the fun of the barbarian trope, right? Is what it tends to really do is reveal the callousness and the deep problems of what we call civilization. And so, so there's an environmental angle to this book. And there's also an angle of a character who really belongs here more than anyone, who is in fact like one of its original inhabitants. And that to me felt really important to represent in these pages.
I don't know where else to go with this without ruining the whole book.
I know,
it is
I'm
only
trying
133
so hard.
pages. So I guess before we let you go, Jedidiah Berry, we have heard now that this is at least a trilogy. When shall we expect the further adventures of Gotchamus in Devouring Gods, what will be the sequel to Kill All Wizards, which is out now?
Right. Devouring Gods will be out next year, I think in the early spring. I don't know the exact date.
That's all right.
And,
it just gives me a time frame to look forward to.
Sure.
Another day of standing in my living room and reading an entire book in one standing.
It's funny. If I'm not mistaken, Robert E. Howard, the author of the original Conan stories, wrote standing up at his typewriter. So maybe there's something there.
Yeah, wow.
He was ahead of his time. People pay a lot of money to do that now.
It's true.
Fancy desk for that now.
Like you, I'm trying not to ruin the magic, Badoomcha, of this book for other people, because it's such a swift read. It's so engaging. So much good stuff happens. And it rekindled that love I had for those really fast-paced sword and sorcery stories that I've read ages ago and probably should revisit.
It's really fun stuff. I mean, look, some of it is maybe what we'd call a little problematic these days, for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's got it's got its issues, but there is this kind of vibrancy to the prose so often, and just the thrill of an old-fashioned adventure. I think can be a source of both excitement, but also a way of experiencing hope and fun.
It's nice to read one of those stories without the misogyny.
And some wonderful little kind of more contemporary twists, let's say, that I think people will be delighted by.
Yes.
If you want to think of a broader, more expansive, rainbow-flavored world.
Yes.
And the book is Kill All Wizards. Everybody who's anybody in the local fantasy scene has already said great things about this, Holly Black. And Kelly Link, who will be in conversation with Jedidiah Berry on June 16th.
Why'd you want to do it at Vision Video?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to do an event there recently for a book release by another local author, Damien Ober, and it was so fun. It was such a fun space to have a literary event in. People were so excited to be there. We're surrounded by movies. He curated a selection of films that had inspired his book, and I've done the same now. So if folks want to stop by, they can see.
Oh, can you give us a hint as to what they are?
Well, of course, we've got the classic Conan movies. We've got Fire and Ice. We've got She Is Conan, which is a newer French sword and sorcery film of sorts, which I highly recommend.
I don't know that one.
And the Jane Austen adaptations are in there as well.
So cool.
And that is where the event will be happening on June 16th, Vision Video on Main Street in Northampton, in conversation with Kelly Link. Jedidiah Berry, the book is Kill All Wizards. We love it. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
It's so hard not to ruin this book for people.
Yeah, but it's only 133 pages. You can ruin it for yourself in 2 hours.
I know. Not ruin, just finish.
Right.
And enjoy. And get ready for the next one.
Can't wait.
Now we tell you all about our cosmic neighbors as portrayed by Steven Spielberg in his latest movie, Disclosure Day, and the opinions our resident astronomer and cinephile Salman Hamid, Mr. Universe, has about it.
You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar in Hatfield, specializing in solar installations, battery storage, and clean energy solutions tailored to the homes and businesses of Western Massachusetts. Northeast-solar.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Eastworks, a community of makers, artists, restaurants, and services located in the Mill District of East Hampton, where community happens. Learn more at eastworks.com.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Time for some more kitchen table astronomy and film reviews from formerly Hampshire College astronomer, the head of Kainat Studios, Dr. Salman Hamid, Mr. Universe, also a board member at Amherst Cinema. We both love to talk about aliens, and since we both love movies, and there was a big movie about aliens from none other than Steven Spielberg talking once again about one of his favorite topics. I think this is the 4th Spielberg movie about aliens. We're going to talk about Disclosure Day.
We're interrupting our coverage.
How will disclosure change us?
I believe for the better. It will remind us of our capacity for empathy, and that there is something bigger out there than just ourselves.
We are not going to spoil anything from Disclosure Day. We're going to say that.
Disclose everything.
One thing I will disclose is that I just got back from the Cape and watched Disclosure Day after a long afternoon of day drinking at the Beachcomber in Wellfleet. So also fell asleep several times during Disclosure Day.
I hope you had some good oysters.
Oh my God. I had 3 dozen oysters.
At the same time?
I shared with a bunch of other people. Yeah.
You should have gone for Jaws.
I know.
Okay,
Anyway.
so I taught a course called Aliens, Close Encounters of a Multidisciplinary Kind, obviously named after Spielberg film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Research interest comes from what shapes people's beliefs about science or science-related things. And so this is one of those places where why do people believe in UFOs? With the premise that search for life in the universe is one of the most exciting fields in astronomy and in the sciences. The discovery, when it happens, or if it happens, it's going to be one of the biggest discoveries of all time. But it hasn't happened. 2 years ago, or in 23, in fact, almost 3 years ago, there was a testimony by a former intelligence officer, David Grush, who actually said that he has talked to people who says that the US government, they are actually in possession of alien spacecraft for decades, and that they have recovered bodies, and he called when he was asked in the testimony, and he says of non-human biologics. So that was a explosive testimony. And Spielberg, his new film, is deeply inspired by that. So when I went to see Disclosure Day, I mean, in some sense, it was the greatest hits of the various UFO claims all the way down from 1947 to David Grush's testimony. So
all the greatest hits of aliens, Roswell, all of the things you've heard of, make their way into this movie.
And then the White House has been playing on that as well, because a couple of weeks ago, they had their own Disclosure Day, which they called that, obviously playing on the film, about previously classified UFO files being released, and those are available on war.gov, because now we are in Department of War, /UFO. While I say that, I should again mention that a week later, after the release of those a couple of weeks ago, they also had a trolling website where whitehouse.gov/aliens
or aliens.gov.
People who are looking for this kind of information would actually take you to this website, which is like Spielberg's film or X-Files, but it is about illegal immigrants, or what they would call, and the deportation of that, and ICE. They were playing on those themes. So all of this is there. So when Spielberg's movie come out, this is a culmination in some sense of Spielberg's own journey. You go from his youthful days of making these rebellious films, him and George Lucas, and transforming the cinema from, of course, the summer blockbusters, Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., and so on and so forth. You can actually go through that list of Alien connected and Jaws connected.
I was Jaws connected because I watched it after going to the Beachcomber.
So how was this movie?
It reminded me, this guy, he made Indiana Jones movies. He knows how to make an action-adventure movie. This is a little bit of an action-adventure movie. I was disappointed, and we kind of knew going into this, tainted by the trailers alone. This is not a nuanced look at aliens for our times.
Yeah.
It's not even a nuanced look at aliens for 2001: A Space Odyssey's times, which is about as nuanced a look at what other life on another planet could be. This is the classic big-eyed gray alien movie. And he said, to his credit, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel on creating my own new kind of alien. There's tons of testimony that this is what aliens are, what people are saying aliens look like when they say they've been abducted, or when they say they have an encounter. We're going to go with that. And that's fine. But I wanted a more nuanced approach to the concept of alien life that we see in Pluribus, that we've seen in Three Body Problem, and
Arrival. I agree to that. And to me, this was like if you go to see Journey or some other old band that, and they are playing their greatest hits, and you are going there to see them play their greatest hits.
And it's not even Steve Perry singing.
Right. Don't stop. To me, the movie was fine. The disappointing part for me was the joy that was missing from it. So I loved E.T. you notice when you are seeing the film, like, that the entire movie, I think, Monty, you have pointed out too, sort of like, it's from a kid's perspective.
Yeah, my friend Bob Kraskowski, the filmmaker, obsessed with Spielberg, said there are only 2 adult faces you even see in E.T. because everything else is shot from a perspective of the height of a child, or E.T.
Right, and that is just so amazing. And then what you connect with the extraterrestrial for a kid in sort of like, the adults are different, like, and all of that stuff, and E.T. is there. So there is an unadulterated joy in E.T. Now, Close Encounters of the Third Kind was a bit darker. Yeah. Nevertheless, its ending is joyful to a certain degree. In the US, in the 40s and 50s, I would say, aliens used to be actually oftentimes saving the earth and nice. And those were also oftentimes blonde and blue-eyed aliens, right, from Venus or from, like, Centauri system or whatever.
Like the AI photo of Trump with 2 tall aliens from yesterday.
That's right. But then the narrative of aliens got darker in the 60s and 70s, and then 80s onwards, it became even further darkened. And Spielberg's aliens were part of that because a lot of people actually use Close Encounters of the Third Kind, those aliens, those grays, which part of it comes from the original Outer Limits episode where you had this sort of like, big-eyed aliens. There are scholarly articles about where our perception of grays, the canonical aliens, come from, which cultures they come from. So there is a really interesting academic interest in these topics. What are they representing, right? Like, that they are representing our fears, they are representing our joy or whatever, but that's what these aliens to a certain degree represent. And Spielberg's latest film, The Disclosure Day, is certainly about that tension, that, there is this government conspiracy. It's a darker film reflecting a darker mood in the society today. And so in that context, he can do chase scenes. My only problem was that, when there was a chase scene coming along, I literally was like, this is a chase scene being directed by Steven Spielberg.
Which isn't bad.
I know, but I shouldn't be thinking about that. You should be immersed in it. And this was like, wow, this is a classic set piece done by Spielberg. As a story, it's fine. So is it a great film? No. It's by a master of film, and this is towards the end of his career. He's made a film which is about a summation of that. Does it tell you anything revealing about aliens or anything? Not really. If you are not familiar with the various cultural discussions going on about UAPs or UFOs, I think you will find it really interesting. For me, a lot of the stuff was, this is from this testimony, or this is from that claim or that story.
2 things, one positive and one negative. The positive to me was, I think it does do a pretty good job of wrestling with what would happen with world religions in the event of a Disclosure Day. Talking about culturally what would happen if there was an actual Disclosure Day. Here's my negative.
Yeah.
I was hoping that this was the actual Disclosure Day. That the United States government has been covering this stuff up for 60 years, and they said, it's time to reveal this. We need somebody like Steven Spielberg, a master storyteller, to tell this story. And then at the end of the movie, Spielberg was going to somehow break the fourth wall and say, this is actual footage of actual aliens that actually came from the government. They do exist. It's time to move forward. This is the actual Disclosure Day. If Martin Scorsese can weave fake footage into a Bob Dylan documentary like he did in the Rolling Thunder documentary, which really made me mad, Spielberg could have woven in real government videos of real aliens, if they exist, and who better to have done it than Spielberg? That's the one spoiler I'll say that doesn't happen.
I actually think that was my biggest disappointment from the film. The way this film imagines that these UAPs and UFOs doesn't exist in the culture. This conversation doesn't exist in the culture. And people are like, oh my goodness, there is an alien. I think this movie should have been more self-aware, but a self-aware film would be like, everybody is like, oh yeah, we knew about it. Here it seems like that when you hear about it, everybody is shocked. Well, they wouldn't be because it's so much in the news.
You would be shocked.
If there is a real alien.
If a real Disclosure Day happened, you would be shocked.
But there would be a lot of skepticism. Like, yeah, we've heard it. Like, there would be a skepticism about it. So that's what's missing. For people who are really interested in this topic, one thing that has been a tell for me, both from the congressional testimonies, from people who really believe that, and in this movie, there is no curiosity about the aliens. There is stuff about technology, sure. That's what David Grush's testimony was about. But if you were to tell me, Monty, I have an alien, and I would believe you, well, somewhat, my first set of questions are going to be about, oh, what is its biology? I mean, is it DNA based or not? Did they evolve? What kind of a star was it where they evolved from? Was it a yellow star? Because we are all shaped by very specific evolutionary conditions here on Earth. So any other sample, and that's the reason why discovery of even a microbe is so crucial, because we don't have any other example. None of these people ever show any curiosity about any of these things. And if we are to believe the testimony, and if we are to believe what's shown in the Disclosure Day, the movie, they've had it for decades. So after all these decades, nobody has asked this question. They're all like, oh, what is this technology made up of? Well, if there's a technology, okay, well, do they use visible light? We've talked about insects here, like, that is it so interesting? Like, that some of them uses infrared. Why do they use that? I mean, you would assume that if they are from another planet, that it would be a little bit different. And whatever that little bit different would be really interesting purely from evolution perspective, from biology perspective. Did they make the spacecraft? Or did they hands to drive? Sort of like, was there wheels? Or not. But forget about technology. I am most interested in biology. And one thing they don't talk about is any of those curious questions. They mostly are focused on either technology or defense. They are a threat. If somebody tells you that, oh, we have evidence and all of that stuff, but they are not curious, they are not excited, I think you know where that evidence came from. And that's not from outer space.
That being said, I'm going to watch Disclosure Day again when I haven't been day drinking at the Beachcomber, and I will give it an even more fair assessment, both as a film and as an alien movie.
We'll see.
On the next Fabulous 413, more books, more better with the new novel, The Emilys, from Northampton author Heather Abel.
More Juneteenth at Wisteria Hurst in Holyoke and Pomeroy's Vegetable Farm in East Longmeadow.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.